But anyway, first poem. I don't know. I just got in this weird headspace to where I could compose stuff. So I wrote this, and then very recently I wrote a sequel to it, which I will read following this poem. This is called In the Shadow of Generation X. This was the break in a vicious cycle, the end of 100 years, which started with blood in the streets, which eventually dried up and stayed dry until the blood tide was high again a few years later. At the end of the century, there was no blood on our streets, no blood in the alleyways, no blood in the parking lots or driveways. But there was blood at the pump stations, there was blood in our water towers and in our pipes and streaming out of our faucets. So consequently, there was blood in our stomachs and bladders and in our toilet bowls. It was flushed into the ocean to wash up on foreign shores, turning the sand maroon before it flowed inland. This was the end. This was a promotional t-shirt for a play that was the bastard child of Titus Andronicus in our town, hung out to dry on a clothesline in a backyard 1 mile east of the Mississippi River, the sunlight fading into white at an alarming rate. And I was sitting in my car when the free verse hit me like a 1-ton chunk of a crumbling overpass, and I realized that the swastikas I saw carved into jack-o'-lanterns as a kid were made by the rebellious older brothers of children who, along with these perpetually confused renegades, would one day inevitably wear a uniform, even if their army was not one made to fight, and even if they only wore that uniform for one day. This was the crest of a wave which was never meant to splash down, but it did. And now as I walk on the flooded suburban streets, which lead to highways, which lead to urban settings, which is where I want to be anyway, I'm tired of being asked to fill someone's shoes. I'd rather be barefoot as I walk to my car, get in, buckle up, turn the key, shift it into drive, and hit the gas. Alright, so my fear is that the sequel is actually like worse than the original, which means I've actually regressed in past 10 years, which would suck. I don't know. So that was In the Shadow of Generation X. This is called Light and Shadow. Start with a quote. Teenage angst has paid off well. Now I'm bored and old. Kurt Cobain. The war is over. I saw it. It was barely readable in the bottom of the frame. Some iPhone shot YouTube video of a CNN broadcast on somebody's TV, and the news ticker at the bottom of the screen flashed 3 words: war is over. But it was never really about the war anyway. We've had over 10 years to get our act together, and we were waiting for those who came before us to pass the torch, but they had let it burn out in an act of defiance, or was it neglect? So now all we're left with is a faintly flickering ember. There was a lingering fear early on of having to live in our predecessors' shadows, but the dim glow of the ember we were given wasn't bright enough to cast shadows at all. Instead, everyone's a silhouette, and the light is only barely bright enough to work by, and only when it's mindless, boring slave labor. There are no stark contrasts of light and shadow. Our Instagram feeds are devoid of chiaroscuro compositions. We were left with the sole option of fading away. Burning out was something only the previous generation did, and they did it well. I picked up what was left of the fire with my thumb and forefinger just to see if the dying ember was cool enough to hold in my hand, and it was. But then I realized that even this was enough to strike sparks anywhere, in any direction, and many of us did, and the madness was sure to follow. We're no less angsty than the previous generation, no less deranged, and as a matter of fact, no less decadent either. We just know how to monetize it better. Every negative thought becomes a blog post with ad space reserved in the corner to be sold to the highest bidder. Soon the streets will be overrun by corporate whores, in the literal sense. You'll meet her. She'll be the one collecting residuals for having the Time Warner logo tattooed on her as a tramp stamp. She'll give you a hand job in some dark alley, and as she tells you, you really should check out the exciting new spring lineup of shows on the USA Network. And no, you don't have to pay for her services. That's what the corporations are for. But tip generously, or next time she won't wash her hands after she's done with the syphilitic trucker who was among before you. And everyone has a voice now. You don't even need corporate sponsorship. The goal is to rise above the white noise and meaningless chatter. There are millions of voices out there, like countless microorganisms. Will mine be benign, or can it be truly infectious? Can it be like the smallpox virus, hidden in blankets, given to one hipster tribe, and then another, and another? Will it mutate and live on in perpetuity, and not be confined to a test tube? It'll start now, in an age where MDMA can be marketed as either a party drug or a treatment for PTSD, and an escape is any place with a Wi-Fi connection that you can drive to on a full tank of gas. But true immortality isn't about uploading your thoughts and personality to some vast, all-encompassing Omni network where it will linger indefinitely with no form or purpose. No, to achieve eternity, one must succeed where that war, which is now apparently over, has failed. One must win hearts and minds, and I think I'll start with yours. So, how am I doing? Thank you.